Oh, thank you so much. The music was wonderful. I loved everybody's contribution. And today I was hoping I would hear flute music. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Coco. And I want to thank you, Susan, because your invoking prayer this morning covers everything. It did. It covered everything. Well, I'm going to share you what I have to share, and I thank you for coming to share your energies with me. I'm standing on grounding plates. My class has been very good about seeing to it that I'm grounded, because so much of my time has been healing on other levels of being. And I am very grateful to Shiva, and we are indeed a Shiva church. And it finally manifested as this great male energy that's coming up and meeting our female and male energies and making us very strong. Anyway, I appreciate it. And Shiva is from the Pleiades. And, you know, he had the blue body that one half of it was the male energy from the waist down, and the other half was female. And so when there was a problem in the earth and it needed to be cleaned up and cleansed, the male part came and just cleaned everything up, because male and female energies are in balance in Shiva, and they're in you. So it gobbles up what you don't need and gets rid of it, erases it, it moves it out, and then the loving compound that you carry brings forth old ideas and new beginnings that you have buried in that old collective mind that's now not having, it doesn't have any power anymore, okay? Well, anyway, the high frequency love energies coming to in our universe now are so high, and it's coming into all of us. We didn't ask for it. Space didn't ask for it, but it's here. And it's letting go of all the collective mind energies that we experienced one way or another in our lives in order to become the strong and loving individuals that we are now. And it's really beautiful. The old gene in human beings that empowered the laws of karma have been turned off, and the new gene base is changing our DNA. Well, this reminds me of our puberty years, you know. Before we were little children, and then we hit puberty, and then our bodies changed and our mind changed, and we didn't know whether our parents were smart or not. It reminded me of a Mark Twain story when Mark said when he was a teen he thought his dad was as dumb as a load of bricks. And he was absolutely amazed when he got to be 21 and found out how much he had learned. So we are learning, but we don't have a pattern. I don't know that they've ever found a pattern of what we will develop individually as aspects of this great puzzle, this great infinite mind being that brought us into, well, we agreed to come into this world for this experiment because we're learning to be what it is to use our energies within our own body to make the world and our lives more joyful and to bring healing and love and music and art, all the beautiful gifts that we have inside. And many of these gifts have been buried in this old garbage. Well, we are beginning to discover new aspects of ourselves as we begin to grow, and it is so beautiful. What we're doing is we are removing the old veils of deception. As human beings, we are an exciting part of a new adventure of self-discovery, and I can tell you that can be frightening. Why? Because when we give up things, it stirs our emotions at such a deep level, and when it leaves, we feels like it's taken a part of ourselves, but we do it because we're ready and we don't have a choice. In the 70s, I had a death experience in 1965, but in the 70s, I was still searching for my own self of identity. Someone would come and meet me and say, well, hello, what do you do? I said, oh, my husband is a professor at DU, and he graduated with PhD from Cornell, and he's in engineering. And I give him a whole rundown. But it wasn't me. And so as I was growing into a deeper sense of myself, I knew I had to claim that. And so I thought, I wonder if I ever wrote anything down about that. I was going through old stuff and cleaning my files and getting rid of things. And I ran across a note, and it said, Dear Harry, that's my husband, I love you, and I don't want to live without you. I talk of self-release and inner strength, those energies I possess, but I really am fearful of tomorrow. So breaking the bonds of dependence and moving into our own space is a struggle that was no less than dying for me. And in many places, it's the same with you, because you're parting with people that you've loved for years, dear friends, family members, and so on. But as your frequency is raising with all these new vibrations, it changes how people see us and how we see people. And sometimes it's necessary to let go of these old things. But what you're doing now is you're removing the veils of self-deception and stepping into your own power. We are choosing what we want to have manifest in our life. Susan's example of parking places, it really works, and it manifests very fast. Part of it is because she's so in harmony with the energies that she's embodying. And what is space? It's something that can expand and meet the needs, and it does. Okay? We are fed by the creative force of wisdom that is within us. And as grace grows within us, we are being given new thoughts and ideas for self-expression. Well, I looked up to see what grace really meant in the dictionary, and it said, we are fed by the creative force of the universe that is within, and the grace within us is a being of expression, our being. So you are a bringer of this joy into light. And what is grace? It's the ecclesiastical meaning of grace is divine assistance given to men and women for regeneration. So what we're doing is we're regenerating our bodies in a whole new way, far greater than anything we ever could have imagined while we were going through that I, me, and mine syndrome and feeling like we were victims. And in truth and reality, all the things that happened to us were created by the wisdom body and ignorance. And we were part of a collective mind that had been programmed a particular way. But this wisdom body helped bring what you want. And when it didn't work out, then you got mad. So you're victims. But I found in one of my experiences that I was pregnant with the world. And one of the things I realized is that I was the perpetrator and I was the victim. And there's a space in between, which is a balancing the male and female energies that says, I am my own self and I have a right to choose. And so you look at these energies on the right and you look at them on the left, and you can look at them and say, I know who you are, I know what created you, and you're free to go your way. And they will begin dissolving and leaving your life. But as they do, then this beautiful feminine energy inside of you will begin to reveal new aspects of things you didn't even know you could do. Well, anyway, It's wonderful when we recognize the joy of power that we have within us. It is a divine force that brings joy and light to our pathways of renewal. It helps dissolve the old ignorance we embodied because we don't need it anymore. I want to tell you a story about what it is to be thrilled by something, okay? I received a book for Christmas that I never took off the shelf, and it was called The Light Eaters, and it was by Zoe Schallinger, Challenger, Schallinger, and it was called The Light Eaters. It was written in 1925 and made the New York Sellers Best List for a long time. Well, when I was thinking about 2.5 weeks ago, I had to find something to read. I turned around and there it was on the shelf right beside me. I said, oh, I picked it up and I started to look at it and then I started to read it. And I knew there was something in that book that could connect with energies in me that I hadn't recognized the connections for. Well, anyway, that deep connection was so deep, it was part of my being that was going to come into focus for me consciously. Now, her book made a reference to The Secret Life of Plants, and I assume everybody here might remember that because it came out, I think, the film of it came out maybe in the early 80s. But when I saw that, it just made my heart sing because I knew everything had consciousness, and I knew that plants had feelings. We all do. And when you nurture them, they grow big and beautiful, and when you're going to cut them up, they shiver. Well, anyway, that came out about the time Zoe was getting ready to be a biologist, and she needed money to help with the research work she was doing. The people who decided they needed to prove whether or not that work that was done on The Secret Life of Plants got stuff, hooked it up, and they couldn't get the same results in their lab. So they went back to the guys and say, well, we think this is just your imagination, and we don't think it really happened at all. And the guy said, well, you have to have a connection with the plants. And they said, and that's what they had called consciousness. And anyway, science wasn't ready for the word consciousness. They didn't think it had been explored enough to really be confirmed by plugging instruments in and out and that kind of your brain, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, she decided to rephrase when she was asking for money. She had sense enough, you can't use the word consciousness. So she said she studies the life force in plants. Now, life force, they think you can measure on machines and so on, vibration-wise. So she was given money to pursue her dream of working as a biologist. Also at the time, she mentions in the book that in the 1800s there were plants, the fern plants, that were growing in Europe. And at that time, there were scientists who thought that everything had to have seeds in order to grow and be new. Well, they looked and looked for seeds in the ferns, and they couldn't find them. So finally they decided, well, they're secret seeds and they're hiding, and we don't have the equipment yet to find them. Well, Zoe was I think it was in Idaho, and she came across 2 ferns, one male and one female, and they were sharing a little puddle of water. And when it was time for the female to grow and bring more new life into the world, the female put sperm or pollen, whatever you want to call it, anyway, wiggled and swam around in the water, and it had 60 minutes to find the female to fertilize her. And it was so beautiful. So she shot another thing down, birds and bees, different ways. Anyway, those plants were impregnated and brought forth new growth into the world. Now, Zoe decided she was going to go to Hawaii. And now, Hawaii millions of years ago, rose when the plates were changing in the Pacific. It rose from the water, and at one point it was a volcano. And when it had been there for a long, long time, there was enough earth and sunlight and calm weather for plants to grow. So the winds were coming in from all over the world, whatever that world was then, and impregnated and got down into the earth and grew. And they grew and they grew. But they lost their means of self-protection. A lot of these things had spiny things and slick things and stinky smells and so on. But there were no predators in this place, this Hawaii. And so they lost all of their protection. Now, when Zoe went to visit a man called Mr. Perlmutter in Hawaii, by the way, the first house we bought was from a family named, was a Perlmutter house, had been built by Perlmutter. It was a very good house, by the way. Aren't in it now, but it was a really good house. So there was a connection, a synchronicity as far as I was concerned. His job was taking care of the plants, the old life of plants, and keeping track of how many were going to be extinct, how many they might save if they could give them the attention they need. Well, he took Zoe up to the top of the mountain, and there was a plateau. They got out of the car, and he showed her a male plant and a female plant. But because of the invaders that had come into Hawaii, they had caused new things to grow up, and the plants that were there for hundreds of thousands of years were having trouble being pollinated. So it'd take a little brush like his wife's, he'd put it into the male sperm or male pollen, and he'd pollinate the female, and then she would grow new life. Well, more and more of these plants had been separated so that the male wasn't strong enough. They weren't strong enough to support each other. So he would sometimes propel down into this mountainside, which was a great crevasse, and he'd do the same thing down there. When he came back and this is one of the things I think is so important to today's talk. When he came back up, he was talking to Zoe, and she said, well, have many of these plants died? He said, oh, yes, quite a few have. But he said, I want to tell you a story about the last female plant that died. And the other, her family plants had been on this island for thousands of years, and she was all alone. And he said, so I just sat with her until she dropped her last leaf. Then I dug her up and I took her to a bar. And I bought a shot of whiskey and I toasted her. And I thanked her for being part of something that had been so beautiful in our world and had contributed so much to making fresh air and new life come into our world, and that she was loved, and I wished her a safe journey back to her family. Well, that was an act of loving joy. Now, we all give loving joy all the time. The music this morning was an act of loving joy. The lady that brought pies to my class 2 weeks ago with her love of making pies, and they had her original own vibration. Nobody else has the same vibrations you have. You're unique. And when I ate that piece of pie, it was so wonderful. It gave me a gift, and I just thought, well, if she comes to church, I'm going to say thank you. Okay, so how do we share our grace? By the things that we enjoy doing, by the things we care about. If you hold the door for somebody and they say thank you, if you pass somebody on the street and they look at you and smile, hello, have a good day. We are sharing a form of grace, of the joy that we are experiencing in ourselves for the experience we're having. Well, Mr. Perlmutter doesn't believe he can save all the species, but he's doing what he can. And when I finished reading that, this was shortly, maybe a day before the electricity went off in our house, and we didn't have any light for a day and a half. I thought this was synchronistic, okay, because I was learning something I had never associated with me in a particular sense. So I would curl up in a bed warm and use a flashlight, and I'd read. And when I opened up, I got to the part of his saving the plants and doing because of love, and I could see the importance of the whole thing. I stopped, everything opened up inside of this body. Now, I know my body cells, some of them are lit and some of them are still not lit. And I know they're like receiving and sending, they're frequencies that connect with other things that I've always considered outside myself. I know that my body has wonderful things in it, but when I looked in, I saw my body bones as crystals that receive and send, and that really can tune you like a radio, and you can go to higher frequencies or down, down, down. It's a teaching thing. And I saw the magnetic core of my own being that's connecting with the earth. And I had done meditations where I'd put my feet down into the earth, and I was part of that core. Well, I saw it, okay? And then when I looked at some of the things that were lit inside of me, I saw living plants, living green plants. And I knew if I could go into that plant, I'm one with it, I could understand, I could find out its origins, I could understand how it developed, and I could understand a lot of things that I couldn't just because I could see it out here someplace. And I realized that the crystal city I had was also inside of me. At one point, I was pregnant with the earth, okay? This was years and years ago, and I never really understood what that meant until I had this experience. Now, I know many of you have already had it. I'm just discovering it, but I want to share it anyway. So everything is inside, including that crystal city and other parts of heaven that I have been in heaven. I've planets, I've done a lot of things. And help to strengthen energies here and there, but anyway, now I'm seeing this. And I said, why is this so important? And then I knew that when you do this in your physical body, you can be what you see. You can be the eagle, you can be the wolf, you can be the lion, you can be the lamb. You are that energy. And it's in you, you can become that energy. And it brings a deeper understanding of how deep the powers go in your own body. And I said, oh, well, I want to be cremated. They said, doesn't matter. It isn't the cremation one way or the other. What counts is that when it's anchored in the physical body and you leave, the energies that you are experiencing are more available to people who might find them interesting here in their own growing process in the future. Well, in this vision, I saw my hologram, I saw the inner world of infinite being, that sees the infinite world of infinite being. I saw the bones are crystal and receiving and sending sets. The plant kingdom was part of me, and the crystal season I thought was out in another realm of consciousness is here inside of me. I never understood what it meant when I saw myself pregnant with the world, and now I do. Because it's all here inside this physical body, although I make journeys in my expanded consciousness into other realms of energy and being. Well, when your God center is stirred by an ideal, it becomes a goal. I'll learn about this, and I'll learn more about the energies. I'll grow into this aspect. But it becomes, when you have an ideal and it's stirred, it becomes a goal that can be brought into fruition by working to make it a part of your life. I want to tell you a story that's an example of this. Young boy went to see a theater play, and he was so thrilled by that play. He said, I want to be an actor. I'm going to be an actor. I've got to meet somebody in this cast. So he went up and he met the leading lady. And he said, this play makes me want to be an actor. And she said, well, that's wonderful. And he said, but I do have a question to ask. And she said, oh, ask it. And he said, can you get any better at what you do? The answer is yes. You know, Jesus said we could do more than he did. It's all there. Accepting it, that's the key. Okay, so we're combinations of karmic energy, good and bad. Now the karmic part is being released. And when that happens, our body senses sharpen. Sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell become more acute. Our own divine, loving, most in-being contains within it, that's the hologram, all of our potential. And we find this potential by following our ideals and our gods. Bake pies, sing, dance, enjoy life. I remember for my 95th birthday, I was taken to a club, and everybody gets up and sings. You know, it's one of those clubs. There are a lot of people having drinks when they wanted them and whatever, but it was a karaoke club. And I was absolutely so blessed. See all these people. Some of them could sing with beautiful voices, and some of them couldn't sing, but some of them could stylize, but they were expressing a joy, and they had somebody and something to share it with. And I went home so grateful for that experience. You never know where you're going to find something that makes you grow and think and be. Well, what you think does manifest. Love yourself to have the capacity to love others. Love what you're doing. And for gosh sakes, laugh, dance, and be joyous. And you shared your energies with me today, and I've shared with you. And I thank you. 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 Blessings upon you all.